It is a cold, gray afternoon in late November here in Geauga County, Ohio, and I want you to picture something with me. Picture that the trucks did not run this week. Not for any grand, frightening reason, just ice on the roads or a shortage somewhere down the line, the way it happens. Now you walk out to your kitchen and you open the cupboard the way you do every evening, and you really look at what is in it. A few cans, a half bag of flour, some boxes near empty, and you do the small sum in your head, and you find that if no truck came again, your family would be scraping the bottom of every jar inside of a week. I am not telling you that to frighten you. Fear is a poor thing to build a pantry on. I am telling you, because it is a thing that can be quietly fixed, the way the old people always had it fixed, long before there was a wire to the grid or a freezer humming in the corner. There was a time when no farm wife in this county would have dreamed of keeping only 3 days of food in her house. The root cellar was full, the pantry was deep, and a great deal of what sat on those shelves would keep for years. Some of it would keep for a lifetime. Now I want you to sit with this. The difference between a home that is afraid of an empty shelf and a home that is not money, and it is not a bunker, and it is not a year of work. It is a handful of plain cheap foods and the plain old knowing of how to store them so they last. There is food on the shelf of every grocery store in this country, food that costs pennies the pound, that will sit good in your cellar for 10 and 20 and 30 years, and the same store that sells it to you would just as soon you came back every Tuesday to buy it fresh, 3 days at a time, forever. Today I am going to walk you through 31 foods that keep that way, the ones that time has the hardest time touching, and I am going to tell you the plain, honest truth about how long each one really keeps and how to store it so it does. My name is Mary Smucker. I am Amish, and I keep house with my husband Christian on our farm here in Geauga County, Ohio, and I am going to be honest with you the way I always am, because honesty is the only thing that makes a video like this worth your time. The old methods of keeping a home in a deep pantry, the kind I am sharing today, there are more of them than fit in any one video, so I gathered the whole of it into a book over at marysmucker.com. The book is the long version, and I will not bring it up again. Now let me give you one honest word over this whole list before we touch the first item so that I am square with you. You will hear these called foods that never expire. That is a pretty phrase, and you have likely seen it on the front of this very video. But it is not quite true, and I will not tell you a thing that is not true. A few of these are very nearly immortal, the salt and the sugar and the honey. Most of the rest keep for years and even decades when you store them right. And a few keep only a handful of years, and I will tell you plainly which ones. None of them, not one, keep forever in a damp, warm, open cupboard. The keeping is in the storing. So hear every number I give you with that understood, and stay with me, because near the end I will give you the honest math on what a deep pantry actually saves a family, and I will tell you who profits from your cupboard being shallow. Now let me tell you what is really going on, because once you see the simple sense of it, everything after makes plain sense. Food spoils because of tiny living things, bacteria and molds. They get into your food and they grow and they eat it, and they turn it sour and soft and dangerous. But here is the part most folks never get told. Those tiny living things need 3 things to live, the same as you and I do. They need moisture, they need air, and they need something to feed on. Take away the water, and they cannot grow. Take away the air, and most of them cannot grow. And a small handful of foods give them nothing to feed on at all. Nearly every single food on this list keeps for one of those 3 plain reasons. It is dried down so low there is no water for the bug to drink, or it is sealed away so tight there is no air, or it is a thing like salt that was never alive and offers a germ no meal at all. The scientists who study this have long Latin words for it, water activity they call it, and all the rest. We just call it keeping a thing dry, dark, and sealed. Once you see that, you understand your whole pantry. You stop trusting the printed date stamped on the package by a man 4 states away who never saw your cellar, and you start trusting your own 2 eyes and your own nose and the plain old science of dry, dark, and sealed. Now, before I count them down, here is the parts list, and it is the shortest parts list I will ever give you, because the whole of this method costs almost nothing but the food itself. You want clean glass jars with tight lids, the kind you likely already have on a shelf. You want a few food-grade buckets with gasket lids, $2 or $3 a piece at the feed store, or had for free behind the bakery. You want a way to draw the air out, a vacuum sealer if you have one, or the old way with a candle and a jar, or simply packing a thing tight to the top. You want a few of those little drying packets, the silica ones, that come in with vitamins and shoes saved up in a tin. And you want a marker to write the month and the year on every single thing you store. That is the whole of it. Jars, buckets, a way to seal, a way to dry, and a pen. Call it $10 if you are starting from nothing, and most of you are not starting from nothing. Now I will tell it slow and count them down from 31. Number 31. White rice. A sack of white rice will outlast your mortgage if you keep it dry. Now mind, I said white, not brown. Brown rice still has its oily bran on it, and that oil turns rancid in a year or two. So for the long keeping it is white rice you want, sealed away from air and moisture in a bag or a bucket with the air drawn out, tucked in a cool, dark corner. Stored so. White rice keeps for decades. A few dried bay leaves tossed in the bucket is the old trick to keep the weevils out. A 25-pound sack is weeks of meals standing ready. Number 30. Dry pasta. You know this one from supper already. What you may not know is that it keeps near to forever when it is dry, because dry means the mold never gets started. The weak link is that flimsy cardboard box, which lets in damp and lets in bugs. Move your pasta into a sealed jar or tin or vacuum bag, keep it cool and out of the sun, and you are looking at 8 to 10 years of good keeping. Number 29. Rolled oats. This is a breakfast that waits for you. Oats keep because they are dried down hard, and the steel-cut kind keep even longer for being less handled. Damp is the enemy. One wet container can spoil the whole lot. Into buckets with the air pulled out and a tight lid, and stored that way, oats keep for many years. Number 28. Dried corn. Long before there were freezers or grocery stores, this kept whole villages alive through the winter. Whole kernels keep longest. Cornmeal keeps too, but ages quicker, because the grinding opens up more of it to the air. Keep it sealed, dry, and free of bugs, and you can grind it, boil it, bake it, or pop it. Number 27. Hardtack. This is the plainest survival bread there is. Just flour and water baked bone dry. And bone dry is exactly why it keeps, because there is no moisture left for anything to grow in. Sailors and soldiers carried it across oceans for that very reason. Stored, sealed, and dry, it keeps for many years. It is hard enough to trouble your teeth, but soak it in soup or coffee and it softens right up. Number 26. Dried beans. They look like nothing in the bag, but in a hard season, these are your meat, full of protein and iron, and what sticks to your ribs. Move them out of the store bag into sealed jars or buckets with the air drawn out, cool and dark and up off the floor. Very old beans get stubborn and want longer cooking, but they never lose their goodness. Number 25. Dried lentils. This is the one you reach for when fuel is short and time is shorter, because lentils cook fast, often with no soaking at all. Damp air and pantry bugs are the only real threats, so seal them away from both. Number 24. Powdered milk. Nothing humbles a craving for a normal breakfast like an empty milk carton in a blackout, and this is the answer. With the water taken out, there is nothing for bacteria to live in. The non-fat, dry kind, kept sealed cool and dry, keeps on the order of 2 decades. Once you open a package, move it to an airtight jar and use it along, since air and damp will shorten it. Now here is the one where I must stop and be very plain with you, because this is the part most folks get wrong. And it is the one item on this whole list where carelessness can truly harm you. Number 23, canned meat. I will say this part as the safety word plainly, because this matters. Store-bought canned meat is already cooked and sealed, so the real question is never the printed date. It is the condition of the can. Low-acid canned foods like meat keep their best quality 2 to 5 years stored cool and dry. But the safety depends entirely on the seal holding. If a can is bulging or leaking or badly rusted or dented along a seam, you throw it out. You do not taste it. You do not give it a sniff and decide. You do not risk it, because a spoiled low acid can hold botulism, a poison you cannot see and cannot smell and cannot cook back out once it is there, and it can kill a grown person. That is not me being dramatic. That is the plain truth of it. Mark the month you bought it. Use the oldest first, and when in any doubt at all, throw it out. A can is cheap. Your family is not. And the same goes double for any meat you can yourself at home. Low-acid meat and beans and the like must go through a pressure canner, not a boiling water bath, or you are sealing that very poison inside. If you do not have a pressure canner and do not know the method, leave home canned meat alone and buy it from the store, and there is no shame in that. Number 22. Ghee. Plain butter has a weakness, and that weakness is water, which is why butter left out turns. Ghee is butter simmered until the water and the milk solids cook out, leaving near to pure fat, and less water means fewer ways for it to spoil. Kept in a sealed jar away from heat and light, with only a clean dry spoon ever put in it, ghee keeps well past a year and longer kept cool. Number 21. Coconut oil. What makes it a keeper is that its fats resist going stale, far better than the thin seed oils that turn quickly. Keep it sealed, cool, and out of the light, and it commonly keeps 2 to 5 years and often longer. Number 20. Raw honey. They have found jars of honey in tombs thousands of years old, the story goes, still good. And whether or not you credit every such tale, honey truly is one of the great keepers. It lasts because it is nearly all sugar with almost no free water, so the microbes can get no foothold, and it is naturally acidic besides. Keep it tightly sealed in a cool spot with water kept out of the jar. If it goes grainy, that is only crystallizing, not spoiling. Set the jar in warm water and it smooths right out. Number 19. White sugar. The funny thing about sugar is that to a germ, it is a desert. They need water to grow, and sugar gives them none. In fact, it pulls moisture in and locks it away, which is the very reason we preserve fruit and make jam with it. The only real enemy is damp. If it sets up into a hard brick, it has not spoiled, it has only taken on moisture. Break it up, and it is fine. Kept sealed and bone dry, sugar sits for decades. Number 18. Pure maple syrup. Open a bottle of the real thing and you smell the woods, not a factory. Pure maple keeps itself because its sugar is concentrated enough to hold most spoiling at bay. So a sealed bottle keeps for years. Once opened, keep it cold to hold off mold. Number 17. Blackstrap molasses. This comes from the very last boiling of the sugar, which leaves it thick and dark and concentrated. And that thickness is what gives it its long keeping. Its flavor deepens with time rather than fading, and the old bakers prized it because it brought sweetness, and iron and minerals both. Number 16. Salt. There is nothing alive in this crystal and nothing for anything to feed on. No fat, no water, no sugar, just a mineral the bacteria cannot use. That is why the ancient traders hauled it across deserts and seas, because it did not rot, it simply waited. The only way to ruin salt is to let it get wet and clump. For deep storage, skip the iodized kind, since the iodine can fade over the years. And beyond seasoning, salt is your curing and your pickling and your body's own need. All in one. Number 15. Bouillon cubes. Think of these as flavor stored in a box, small and light, and quietly strong. One dropped in hot water and you have broth that smells like a real kitchen. They keep because they are packed with salt and dried through. Damp is the only real enemy, so keep them sealed away from steam and the sink, and they hold their strength for years. Number 14. Soy sauce. The salt and the long fermenting did the preserving work before the bottle ever reached your shelf, which is why it can sit quietly for years. Keep the cap tight and store it out of the sun and away from the stove's heat. Number 13. Whole peppercorns. You have surely smelled how fresh ground pepper is bold at first and then goes flat and dusty in a few weeks. Whole peppercorns keep their flavor because that hard shell seals the oils inside like natural packaging. Keep them whole in a tight glass jar and grind only what each meal needs, and the bite stays strong for years. Number 12. Dried herbs. Here is a thing worth understanding. Dried herbs do not rot the way fresh food does. They only lose their flavor over time. So what you are guarding is strength, not safety. Whole leaves keep longer than the powdered blends, because less of them touches the air. Number 11. Distilled white vinegar. If one bottle in your kitchen simply refuses to die, it is this one. It is acidic enough to shut bacteria down before they ever get comfortable. So an unopened jug keeps usable for decades with no real loss. And beyond cooking, it is a cleaning help and a pickling base, both. Number 10. Apple cider vinegar with the mother. That cloudy cloud floating in the bottle is no warning. It is proof the bottle is still alive, a living ferment, and it is the very reason this vinegar barely ages. The high acid makes a place where harmful microbes cannot thrive. Some folks keep one bottle going for a decade, topping it off as they use it. Number 9. Pure vanilla extract. Real vanilla is one of the rare things that gets better with age. The secret is the alcohol it is made with, which guards it against spoiling, so that while other things turn, vanilla only deepens. Keep it in a dark bottle, upright in a cool cabinet, and it will outlive nearly everything else on your shelf. Number 8. Baking soda. It keeps because it is not food at all. It is a plain mineral, so there is nothing in it for bacteria to feed on. Keep it sealed and far from the steam, and stored dry it keeps usable for decades. It belongs in any deep pantry for baking and cleaning, and a dozen things besides. Number 7. Cornstarch. This powder has one rule. Stay dry. Keep the moisture out and nothing breaks it down, no bacteria, no mold, and it sits unchanged for years. Move it out of that flimsy box into an airtight container, set it in a cool, dry cabinet, and forget it. Number 6. Instant coffee. Morning does not stop for an emergency, and neither does the wanting of coffee. Once coffee is dried and sealed, there is almost nothing left for microbes to attack. Air slowly dulls the flavor. So move it from the flimsy jar into an airtight tin and keep it from heat. And stored cool and dark, it holds well past 5 years. Number 5. Dark chocolate, 70% and up. Milk chocolate is fragile, but high cocoa dark chocolate is a rugged keeper. Past 70% cocoa, the sugar and cocoa butter take over, and the moisture stays very low, which slows spoiling to a crawl. Heat is what ruins your supply, so keep it cool, sealed, and out of the light, and it holds 2 to 5 years. In a hard, frightening time, one square does more for a heavy heart than a whole canned meal can. Number 4. Green tea. Tea does not rot, it fades. And that difference is the whole of it. Dry leaves do not spoil like fresh food because the bacteria cannot live without water. What steals the quality is light and air and damp. Seal it tight and keep it dark, and the leaves hold far longer than you would expect. Number 3. Popcorn kernels. A movie snack does not shout emergency food, yet this one quietly outlasts most of the pantry. Each kernel comes in a tough shell that guards the moisture inside, and damp is what cracks that shell and ends it. Keep them sealed in airtight jars with a little drying packet tossed in, and popping corn keeps for many years, sometimes past a decade. And unlike the heavy grains, it cooks fast on little fuel. Number 2. Hard candy. You may have noticed old candy does not mold. It only goes sticky. That is because it is near to pure sugar with almost no free water, and no water means nothing for microbes to grow on. Sealed in glass with a moisture absorber and kept cool, it sits for years, and it is compact and cheap and an instant lift of energy when everything heavy feels like too much. And number 1, hard liquor. Now I will be plain. This is not a food, and I do not put it on your shelf as one, nor as anything to lean on. And in our community, it is held with great care. But high-proof spirits keep almost forever, because nothing can live in them once the alcohol is high enough. So a sealed bottle does not spoil in the way food does. For that reason, the old stores kept some, not for drinking so much as for keeping, a thing to clean a wound or to trade in a hard season when something that never spoils is worth more than money. I name it for honesty's sake, as the old pantries truly had it, and I leave the keeping of it to your own conscience. Now, before I send you off to start, let me tell you plainly what this list does and what it does not do, because that is only fair. What it does is give you a deep larder of cheap calories and salt and fat and a little comfort, food that will not betray you when the shelf at the store is bare. What it does not do is feed your family a balanced, healthy diet on its own. A cellar of rice and sugar and salt will keep you alive, but a body needs more than calories. It needs the green things and the fresh things too, and that is why the garden and the canning of your own vegetables sits right alongside this list, not in place of it. And this list does not make you a survivalist or a frightened person. Your great-grandmother kept a year of food by her, and she was neither. So do not let anyone, me included, sell you fear with it. It is a larder, not a fortress. Now think for a quiet moment about who gains from your keeping only 3 days of food in the house. There is no money in a pantry that lasts a generation. Let me give you the honest math of it. A family that runs to the store 2 and 3 times a week, buying small, buying often, keeping nothing deep, spends a fair bit more for the buying small and throws out a fair bit more for letting fresh things spoil, call it several $100s a year, lost to small, frequent buying and waste, where a family with a deep larder of rice and beans and honey and salt put buys those same staples by the sack at pennies the pound, in season, on sale, and wastes almost none of it. Over the years, that is real money, but the money is not even the heart of it. A family with a year of food put by is a family that does not need the store the way the store needs them to. And so the deep pantry, the root cellar, the full cupboard that every one of our great-grandmothers kept as a plain matter of course, quietly stopped being taught. Now, I do not call that a conspiracy. A conspiracy needs men in a room agreeing to deceive you, and there is no such room. It is worse than that, in a way, and stranger. It is a whole way of selling that simply grew up around the full shelf and the frequent trip. And the old way of the deep store just stopped being passed down, not because it failed, but because no one anywhere profits by reminding you of it. There is far more money in a customer who must come back on Tuesday than in one who is provisioned for a year. Nobody had to sit down and arrange it. It simply earns its living off of you, not knowing a thing your great-grandmother knew in her bones. So here is what I want you to do this week. Do not try to buy a year of food in a day. That is how folks burn out and quit. Pick just one thing off this list of 31. The rice, or the beans, or the salt, or the honey, the cheapest, longest keeping food there is. Buy one extra sack or one extra jar of it. Store it the right way, dry and dark, and sealed in a jar or a bucket with the air drawn out. And take your pen and mark the month and the year on it. That is one stone laid. Next week you lay another, a few jars of beans, a tin of salt. And in a season, built a little at a time, you will have a pantry deeper than most homes on your road, and you will not have felt the cost of it. Then come back and tell me in the comments which one you started with, because I want to hear that you have begun. And while you are there, tell me what county you live in and how old your house is, because the older houses in places like this county so often still have the real root cellar, the cold stone room built for exactly this, and I learn from every one of you what those old cellars were built to hold and how they are holding up. I read every single one. The way the old women learn from one another across the fence line, one pantry and one season at a time. Next time I am going to show you the canned and jarred foods worth keeping and the ones that quietly waste your money, and how to read a can and rotate a shelf so that nothing is ever lost to time at the back of the cupboard. It is the natural next step after today. But today you start with one. You bring home one sack or one jar of the longest keeping food there is, and you seal it away dry and dark, and you mark the date, and you have laid the first stone of a pantry that does not fear an empty shelf. You will come to understand at last that a full cellar was never strange and never fearful, only forgotten, and that the forgetting can be undone one jar at a time. The people who built this country with their hands knew things we are only just starting to remember.